Adrian Kingston stood at the window of his penthouse suite, the glittering skyline of the city stretching out before him. Tomorrow was supposed to be his wedding day, a grand event that high society had been buzzing about for months. He was set to marry Isabella Devereux, a woman of impeccable pedigree and beauty. Their union was touted in every major gossip column as the wedding of the decade. Yet, as the night draped itself over the city like a blanket of secrets, Adrian felt uneasy. He sensed the tension in the air, the subtle shift in Isabella's demeanor over the last week. She had grown distant and guarded, her eyes flickering with something he couldn't quite decipher whenever he tried to discuss the future or the ceremony. Despite his instincts yelling at him that something was off, he had brushed them aside. After all, Isabella was not just any fiancée. She was a Devereux, a prominent socialite who seemed to thrive under the limelight. When Adrian received an urgent phone call from his executive assistant, however, all illusions of peace shattered. "Sir, there's a situation in your private suite on the 23rd floor," his assistant said, words tumbling out in hushed panic. Adrian's heart pounded, and his mind raced with unpleasant possibilities. Was there a security breach? A tabloid reporter? Or something more sinister? Without hesitation, Adrian rode the private elevator down to the 23rd floor, his gut twisting with each passing second. As soon as the doors slid open, he heard the unmistakable murmur of hushed voices, and one of them belonged to Isabella. His pulse drummed in his ears. Slowly, quietly, he moved toward the double doors of his suite. The doors were ajar. Through the gap, Adrian saw Isabella locked in a heated embrace with Charles Haywood, a cunning business rival Adrian had bested more than once in high-stakes property deals. The shock that slammed into Adrian's body was as cold and sharp as broken glass. For a moment, he stood frozen, unable to accept what was right in front of his eyes. But then Isabella moaned Charles's name softly, sending rage and betrayal coursing through Adrian's veins. He shoved the doors open, eyes burning with fury. "What the hell is going on here?" he thundered, voice echoing off the suite's walls. Isabella and Charles jumped apart in alarm, their faces pale. Isabella's hair was mussed, and Charles's shirt hung half open. They stared at Adrian with guilty terror. "Adrian, this isn't what it looks like," Isabella tried, her words stumbling over themselves, but the evidence was right there in his own bedroom. The bed they planned to share after the wedding tomorrow was already in disarray, pillows on the floor. "It's exactly what it looks like," Adrian growled, stepping forward as if he might tackle Charles. In truth, he wanted to tear him to pieces. But more than anything, he wanted to understand why. "You're both disgusting," he spat, voice thick with hurt. "I trusted you," Charles scoffed, smoothing his disheveled hair. "Don't be so melodramatic, Adrian. Isabella was never really yours to begin with." In that moment, Isabella turned her eyes down, as if she felt a shred of shame. "Adrian, please." But Adrian didn't wait to hear her excuses. The betrayal was too absolute. This was the woman he had promised to love, a woman he had built grand plans with, a woman who had told him every day that she loved him too. And tonight, less than 24 hours before their wedding, she was here with another man. He turned on his heel, refusing to let either of them see the tears that threatened to gather in his eyes. He marched out of the suite, slamming the door so hard the entire hallway vibrated. He didn't stop until he reached the private elevator. Only then did he allow a moment of raw devastation to show on his face. The wedding was off. But more than that, Adrian Kingston felt like his entire life had just shattered beneath him. The next morning, the media had a field day. Headlines in every newspaper and online gossip site blared. Kingston Devereux wedding called off. Paparazzi camped outside Adrian's corporate office, desperate for a glimpse of the billionaire businessman. In less than 12 hours, the story exploded. Rumors varied. Some said Adrian had cheated, others said Isabella had scandalous secrets. But the truth, known only to a select few, was devastatingly simple. Adrian stood at the large floor-to-ceiling windows of Kingston Towers, the headquarters of his hotel empire. The city beneath him was alive with curiosity about his personal scandal. From the corner of his eye, he saw his best friend, Nathan Sinclair, approach. "You okay, buddy?" Nathan asked gently, his usual playful tone replaced by concern. He was a tall, lanky man with an earnest heart, someone who had always looked out for Adrian since their college days. Adrian could only manage a humorless laugh. "Do I look okay?" Nathan sighed. "You look like hell." Word on the street is that Isabella is spinning the story to make you look like the villain. She's telling the press that she called it off because you weren't ready to commit. "Typical," Adrian muttered. "I guess it doesn't matter to her if she drags my name through the mud. She's always been good at playing the victim." He sank into his leather office chair, exhaustion radiating off him in waves. He hadn't slept at all since discovering the betrayal. Nathan placed a reassuring hand on Adrian's shoulder. "You can handle this. The truth will come out eventually." Adrian closed his eyes. He had dreamed of a new chapter in his life, one full of companionship and love. Instead, he found himself at the center of the city's biggest scandal, with a fiancée who had humiliated him in front of the world. Adrian's phone buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. Reluctantly, he answered. It was a journalist from a major network, pushing for a statement. Adrian ended the call after a curt refusal, frustration building inside him. The calls were incessant, reporters, business associates, acquaintances offering pity or fishing for details. His gaze traveled to the bouquet of white roses sitting on the corner of his desk, a relic from happier times. They were originally meant for Isabella, a tradition he had followed for months. Adrian scoffed and pushed them off the desk. The vase shattered, water soaking the carpet. He found himself breathing heavily, his mind swirling with rage and humiliation. Nathan knelt to pick up the scattered petals. "You can't hide in here forever. Eventually, you'll have to set the record straight, or move on." "Right now," Adrian said flatly, "I don't care what the media thinks. I just want to forget she ever existed." "But that might be hard," Nathan ventured, "because Isabella loves attention. She won't go quietly." Adrian nodded, his eyes cold. "Let her try. I'm done playing by her rules." Unknown to both men, the entire city was already devouring every snippet of gossip about the once golden couple. Isabella Devereux had used the morning's press to paint Adrian as arrogant and emotionally unavailable. Adrian, humiliated and angry, was determined to lie low, but he would soon realize there was no hiding from the tidal wave of public interest that was only just beginning. Later that afternoon, Adrian found himself at one of his luxury hotels, ironically the same place where he had discovered Isabella's betrayal. He wanted to address staff concerns and ensure the scandal didn't tarnish the Kingston brand. As he walked through the marbled lobby, every employee stared, sympathy or curiosity shining in their eyes. He hated it, loathed that people saw him as a wounded man rather than the confident billionaire he had always been. The air felt thick with pity, and it irritated him to no end. Before he could reach the executive offices, a soft voice spoke behind him. "Mr. Kingston?" He turned to see Elena Ramirez, a petite maid with large, earnest brown eyes. She wore the hotel's standard housekeeping uniform, her dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. Though Adrian had thousands of employees, he recognized her vaguely. She had worked in his estate on occasion, sent over by one of the agencies that serviced his properties. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bother you," she stammered, appearing flustered under his intense gaze. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about what happened." Adrian's brow furrowed. "Do you even know what happened?" Most people were commenting from rumor and speculation, not direct knowledge. Elena hesitated, looking down as if deciding whether to speak the truth. "Yes," she said quietly. I was delivering fresh sheets to the suite when I saw Ms. Devereux and Mr. Haywood together." Adrian's eyes flashed with surprise and discomfort at the memory. "You saw everything?" She nodded, sympathy brimming in her gaze. "Yes, sir. I wanted to say that you didn't deserve that." Something in Elena's voice caught Adrian off guard. There was no condescension, no pity. It was a simple, honest statement from someone who had no reason to lie or embellish. "Thank you," Adrian managed, swallowing the lump in his throat. "Not many people know the real story." Elena paused as though debating how much to reveal. Then, seeming to gather her courage, she continued, I've seen Miss Devereaux around the estate and the way she treats people. She never truly cared for you, Mr. Kingston. She cared for what you are and what your status could provide." Adrian let out a bitter laugh. "And I was too blind to see it." He rubbed his temples, the weight of everything pressing down on him. "You're not the only one," Elena offered in quiet sympathy. "People like her are good at wearing masks." She stepped back, as if suddenly realizing she was speaking to the billionaire owner of the hotel chain. "I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn." He waved a dismissive hand. "No, don't apologize. It's refreshing to hear honesty for once." For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Something about her grounded presence soothed the storm inside his heart. He managed a faint smile. "Thank you, Elena." She returned a small, polite nod. "Any time, Mr. Kingston." And with that, she hurried away, leaving him with a curious feeling that he wasn't as alone as he had believed. That evening, Adrian found himself in the bar of another one of his five-star hotels, swirling a tumbler of whiskey in his hand. The background music was mellow, the lighting dim. He hadn't eaten all day, the adrenaline from the scandal had kept him going, but now it was catching up with him. He watched as Nathan took a seat beside him, ordering a drink. "You've got to pace yourself," Nathan warned, eyeing Adrian's almost empty glass. "What's one more whiskey?" Adrian said with a shrug. "My fiancé cheated on me. I can't show my face in public without being called a jilted groom. Maybe I should just stay drunk until the media frenzy dies down." Nathan frowned. "You're better than that. Don't let Isabella's mistake ruin you." Adrian was about to respond when Elena Ramirez entered the bar. She was carrying a tray of empty glasses, likely having cleared a table. Her eyes met Adrian's for a brief second. She offered a polite smile before focusing back on her work. "Wait," Adrian said suddenly, motioning for her. She approached cautiously. "Aren't you off duty now?" She glanced at the clock on the wall. Yes, in about 5 minutes." Nathan looked between them, confused. Adrian, on the other hand, seemed like a man possessed by a sudden idea. He leaned closer to Elena. "You said earlier that I didn't deserve Isabella's betrayal." Her cheeks warmed. "I did. Do you believe in love?" he asked abruptly, ignoring Nathan's alarmed expression. Elena looked taken aback. "I suppose I do. But it depends on what you define as love, kindness, respect, trust." "Trust," Adrian repeated, scoffing. "And money? Where does that fit in?" She frowned at the mention of money. "Money is just a tool. It can't buy happiness, though it makes life easier. Love can come from anywhere, from the richest man to the poorest woman, if it's genuine." Nathan placed a hand on Adrian's arm. "Dude, don't do anything crazy." But Adrian was already spiraling in his thoughts, the alcohol and heartbreak fueling a reckless inclination. "Elena, if I asked you to marry me right now, for a contract marriage, purely business, would you do it?" His voice was dangerously calm. Nathan nearly choked on his drink. "Adrian!" Elena's mouth fell open in shock. "Marry you? That's not funny, Mr. Kingston." "I'm not joking," he insisted, eyes glinting. "I'm sick of people like Isabella who only see me as a trophy or a wallet. I'm sick of the rumors. The media wants a story. I'll give them a story. A billionaire marries a maid, someone with a good heart, who isn't in it for the money or the status." Elena's gaze darted around, half expecting hidden cameras. "That's insane. We barely know each other." "And I barely knew Isabella, apparently," Adrian shot back. "Look where that got me." Nathan tried to intervene. "Adrian, you're emotional. You'll regret this." But Adrian pressed on, leaning toward Elena. "I can offer you financial security. I'll pay for your education, give you opportunities you've only dreamed of. In return, you'll be my wife in name. We'll attend society events together. You'll live in my mansion, learn to navigate my world, and show Isabella, and everyone else, that I don't need her. That love or marriage isn't just about social circles. It's about choice. Elena stared at him in stunned silence. For a moment, the bar's ambient sounds faded away. She thought about her current life: long hours, poor pay, endless bills. She had big dreams once, to become a teacher or a writer. But life's hardships had cornered her into housekeeping jobs. Here Adrian was, offering an escape. But at what cost? I can't just marry you out of the blue, she whispered. That's not how it's done. Adrian gave a bitter laugh. It's not how anything is done, but I'm done playing by the rules. Besides, you said yourself, money might make life easier. Nathan gaped, unable to believe his friend was serious. Adrian, stop. Elena's heart hammered in her chest. Is this about Isabella? His jaw tightened. Partly. But also, I'd like to prove that status doesn't define love. Or that it shouldn't. She felt a swirl of emotions. Fear, curiosity, maybe even a strange kind of thrill. But mostly, she worried about what this would mean for her dignity, her future, her family. She had an ailing grandmother and siblings she was supporting back home. Adrian Kingston's offer was absurd, yet. He leaned back, reading the conflict in her eyes. I won't force you. Think about it. Torn, Elena nodded dumbly. Her world suddenly tipped upside down. Before she could say anything else, Adrian stood, threw a wad of bills on the bar, and walked away, leaving both Elena and Nathan in stunned silence. For 3 days, Elena wrestled with Adrian's proposition. She lived in a small studio apartment, cramped and dimly lit. The chipped walls and leaky faucet reminded her daily of her financial struggles. Her siblings often called, asking for money for textbooks or groceries. Her grandmother's medical bills loomed over her like a dark cloud. Meanwhile, the media was relentless about Adrian and Isabella's scandal. Elena watched the news, feeling sympathy for Adrian even if she disapproved of his reckless scheme. Yet, the idea gnawed at her. What if she said yes? She could secure her family's future. With Adrian's support, she could finally finish her education, maybe even pursue a career beyond cleaning rooms. But the arrangement felt morally ambiguous. She wasn't someone who gave up her dreams easily, but was this the only way forward? On the 4th day, Elena was summoned to Adrian's corporate office. She arrived nervously, wearing her simple uniform and clutching her worn-out purse. As she stepped into the sleek reception area, she felt starkly out of place among the polished executives in tailored suits. Adrian's assistant escorted her into the billionaire's spacious office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the bustling city below. Adrian stood with his back to her, talking on the phone. When he finally turned around, his gaze was sober, his voice quiet. Yes, get the documents ready, he said into the phone before ending the call. Elena cleared her throat. You wanted to see me, Mr. Kingston? He motioned for her to sit. She did, hands twisting in her lap. Have you thought about my proposal? He asked, eyes unreadable. She swallowed hard, heart pounding. Yes, but I still can't believe you're serious. He leaned against his desk, crossing his arms. I won't pretend this is normal. It's not. But I'm offering you a contract marriage. You'll become my wife in name, but we won't have the typical marital obligations. In exchange, I'll provide you with a generous monthly allowance, cover your family's needs, and fund your education. She exhaled shakily. And your reasons? You still want to upset Isabella. His jaw twitched. Among others, yes. Look, the wedding fiasco put me in a vulnerable position. Everyone thinks I'm pining for Isabella or that I was the one who messed up. I want to move on, and I'd rather do it with someone who isn't going to betray me at the first opportunity. Elena searched his face. What if the media tears me apart? I'm just a maid to them. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. I'll protect you. My PR team will handle it. Plus, people love a good underdog story. Cinderella, from rags to riches. It could even help my public image, make me look like a man who values genuine connections over social status. She bit her lip. But it'll be a lie. Not entirely. If we're respectful toward each other, It can be real enough for both of us, he said carefully, as if testing the thought for the first time himself. Her fingers trembled. I need a guarantee. Name it. I want a clause that if either of us chooses to end the arrangement after, say, a year, we can do so without messy legal battles. But you must fulfill your financial promises regardless. My schooling, my family's security. Adrian nodded. Done. I'll have my lawyer draw it up. You can review it with your own lawyer if you like. I encourage you to do so, actually. She realized this was really happening, her pulse ringing in her ears. In a trembling whisper, she said, Okay, I'll do it. He extended his hand. You won't regret this, he said, though a flicker of doubt passed over his features, as if he himself wasn't sure. Elena shook his hand, sealing a deal that could change both their lives forever. The wedding took place a week later, in the lavish garden of Adrian's mansion. The media was notified just 24 hours beforehand, creating a storm of speculation. Who was this new bride? Why the sudden rush? Had Isabella been replaced? On the day of the ceremony, limousines rolled up to the grand estate. Photographers strained to catch a glimpse of the bride. Elena, dressed in a simple yet elegant white gown, stood hidden behind the curtain that led to the garden aisle. She felt like an imposter in the world of the ultra-rich. Nathan waited with her, shaking his head in disbelief. I can't believe we're doing this, he muttered. Adrian is out there, looking like $1 million, and you're about to become Mrs. Kingston. Elena let out a nervous breath. This is crazy, isn't it? Nathan gave her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Completely bonkers. But Adrian can be relentless when he sets his mind on something. Just don't let him hurt you, okay? She nodded. I'll be fine. We have a contract. Her heart pounded, though, knowing contracts didn't always protect from emotional fallout. The music began. Adrian stood at the end of the aisle in a tailored suit, expression steady, though tension flickered in his eyes. He was flanked by a handful of high-profile guests who whispered among themselves about the shocking turn of events. As Elena walked down the aisle, cameras flashed incessantly. Whispers erupted like small ripples in a pond. Is that the maid? She's so plain compared to Isabella. How did she get him to propose so quickly? Adrian's gaze stayed locked on Elena. She could see determination in his eyes, mixed with traces of vulnerability. When she reached him, he took her hand gently. The officiant began, and the ceremony proceeded in a blur of vows and scripted lines. When they exchanged rings, Elena felt her stomach flip. She repeated the words, though they felt surreal. Adrian's voice was calm, though she noticed his hand trembling slightly when he slid the wedding band onto her finger. The crowd erupted in applause as they were pronounced husband and wife. Cameras zoomed in, capturing the newlywed kiss. Adrian pressed his lips lightly to Elena's. No fireworks, no dramatic passion, but a brief, respectful touch. Still, Elena's heart pounded wildly as if it was the first kiss she'd ever experienced. Almost immediately, reporters shouted questions across the rose bushes. Mr. Kingston, why the sudden wedding? Elena, are you pregnant? Is this a publicity stunt? Security rushed to keep them at bay. Adrian tucked Elena's hand in his arm, guiding her toward the mansion's interior for the small reception. Once inside, she let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. You did well, Adrian said quietly. He looked exhausted despite the triumphant facade. Elena managed a small smile. So did you. Congratulations, husband. The corners of his mouth twitched into something resembling a grin. Likewise, wife. Behind them, the media clamored for more photos, starved for the next shocking headline. Little did they know, this union would turn their world upside down in ways no one could have predicted. The day after the wedding, Elena woke up in a room bigger than her entire apartment. The bed was like a cloud, draped in the finest linens. She ran her fingers over the soft duvet, struggling to believe she was actually inside Adrian Kingston's mansion as his legal wife. She got dressed in a modest dress from her newly provided wardrobe. A timid knock sounded at the door. A maid, someone Elena recognized from her occasional stints at the estate, stepped in. "Good morning, Mrs. Kingston," the maid said, her expression a mix of awe and uncertainty. "Breakfast is ready in the dining room." Elena's cheeks colored. "Please, call me Elena. I'm not used to this." The maid nodded but seemed uneasy. "Of course, Elena." As she followed the maid down the ornate corridors, Elena felt scrutinized by every painting, every bust, every piece of priceless art. She eventually found Adrian at the dining table, sipping black coffee and reading a morning paper. "Good morning," she said softly, sitting across from him. He lowered the paper, revealing a faint smile. "Morning." He gestured to the lavish spread of pastries, fruits, and eggs. "Help yourself." She swallowed. "I'm not sure what to do here. I don't want to step on your routine." He studied her for a moment. "This is your home now, too. Eat what you like. Come and go as you please. But—" he paused. "We do have to attend some social events together as a couple. It's part of the deal." She nodded. "All right. Anything specific coming up?" He checked his phone. "There's a dinner party tonight. A few close associates and friends. I'd like you to join me." Her stomach churned. She pictured the cold stares and whispered remarks that would undoubtedly follow. "Of course," she said, forcing steadiness into her tone. "I'll be ready." He gave a curt nod, then resumed reading the paper. Silence weighed heavy between them, punctuated only by the clink of silverware. Elena tried to focus on her plate, but she could sense tension in Adrian's rigid posture. Both of them were navigating an arrangement that defied logic, and possibly their own emotional boundaries. That night, Elena dressed in a simple black cocktail dress for the dinner party, her nerves roiling. When she entered the mansion's grand foyer, she found Adrian waiting, adjusting his cufflinks. He glanced at her and his expression momentarily softened. "You look nice." She smiled nervously. "Thank you." They rode in Adrian's limousine to an upscale restaurant. Paparazzi flashes lit up the night as they stepped onto the red carpet leading to the private dining area. Questions rang out again. "Elena, how does it feel to be a billionaire's wife?" "Adrian, is this just a rebound?" Adrian stiffened, guiding Elena protectively to the entrance. Inside, a group of wealthy friends and business partners awaited. Nathan was among them, giving Elena a supportive wink. She exhaled, attempting to steady her nerves. The dinner quickly turned into a social gauntlet. People asked invasive questions masked as polite conversation. One woman leaned over, studying Elena's face intently. "So, where did you two meet again? Such a whirlwind romance." Before Elena could answer, Adrian's smooth voice cut in. "We've known each other for a while. Elena worked closely within my organization. Things just clicked." Another man laughed too loudly. "Well, I suppose we should toast the newlyweds. Here's to a surprising union." Glasses clinked half-heartedly. Elena could feel the condescension in the air. Murmurs skated around the table. "She's just a maid. She must have trapped him somehow. This will never last." Still, Elena forced a polite smile, refusing to cower. She ate her meal with as much poise as she could muster. When the dessert was served, she excused herself to the powder room, her heart pounding from the tension. A few minutes later, she emerged to find Adrian waiting in the hallway. He pressed a hand to her lower back gently, guiding her away from prying eyes. "You all right?" She managed a tremulous nod. "I'm fine. This world is just intense." He exhaled. "I know. Listen, if it ever gets too much, tell me." Her chest tightened at the surprising warmth in his tone. "Thank you," she said softly. They returned to the table, and Elena knew that, despite the hostility of this new environment, she wouldn't break. She had made her choice, and she intended to stand by it. After all, it was only the first night of many where she'd have to prove she belonged in Adrian Kingston's elite world. When Elena woke the next morning, she found an itinerary slipped under her bedroom door. It listed meetings with etiquette coaches, stylists, and a language tutor. Apparently, Adrian wasn't wasting time in transforming her into someone who could navigate high society without flinching. Her first appointment was with a stern etiquette coach named Ms. Hastings. The woman wore her hair in a tight bun and looked like she had never cracked a smile in her life. She took one assessing glance at Elena and said, "Stand up straight. Chin up." Elena did as instructed, feeling self-conscious. Ms. Hastings circled her like a hawk. "You will learn how to hold a wine glass, how to make small talk, and how to walk in heels without stumbling. Mr. Kingston expects perfection at upcoming events." Elena's cheeks burned. She hadn't realized how serious or intense this would be. But she reminded herself that she had signed up for this. She had to adapt. Later, she met with a stylist who fussed over her hair, her complexion, her nails. He produced racks of designer dresses, shoes, and handbags, explaining what silhouettes flattered her figure, which fabrics worked best for formal events. Elena's head spun as the day wore on: fashion, etiquette, social do's and don'ts. By evening, she was both physically and mentally exhausted. She retreated to the library in Adrian's mansion to decompress. There, she found him sitting by the fireplace, reading a document. He looked up when she entered, noticing her weary expression. "How was day 1?" he asked, setting the papers aside. Elena slumped into a velvet armchair. "They're turning me into a perfect society wife, whether I like it or not." A hint of a smile tugged at his lips. "You did agree to this." "I know," she conceded, rubbing her temples. "I just didn't realize it would be so much." He studied her for a moment before standing and crossing the room. He handed her a glass of water. "I appreciate what you're doing." She took the glass, surprised by the small gesture of kindness. "Thank you. Though, if you want a high society wife, you could have chosen someone else." He shrugged, eyes flickering with a mix of regret and determination. "I've learned my lesson about choosing women solely from that pool. And I respect your grit." His words warmed her in a way she hadn't expected. After a moment she said, "I'll do my best. But I'm not going to lose myself in the process." He nodded, seemingly satisfied with that answer. "Good," he murmured, returning to his seat. "Because I don't want another Isabella. I want someone real." Elena felt her heart thud in her chest at his admission. For a split second, she glimpsed the vulnerable man behind the billionaire facade. Then, just as quickly, he composed himself, burying his emotions in the documents before him. Still, Elena went to bed that night feeling a spark of optimism. Maybe this arrangement wouldn't be just a transactional nightmare. Maybe there was more beneath the surface. Days turned into weeks. Elena's lessons continued, and soon she found herself handling social interactions with far more ease. At a charity gala hosted by one of Adrian's associates, Elena wore a sleek floor-length gown. She greeted guests politely, engaged in small talk about philanthropy, and even won over a few skeptics with her grace. Despite the polished veneer, she still felt a pang of nervousness when Isabella Devereux entered the gala. The ex-fiancé strolled in wearing a shimmering gold dress, exuding confidence. The crowd parted like the Red Sea to make room for her. Eyes flicked between Isabella and Elena, anticipating some kind of show. Isabella sauntered over, champagne glass in hand, a cruel smile on her lips. "Well, if it isn't the new Mrs. Kingston," she purred. "Quite the gown. Who taught you how to dress? My stylist." Elena forced a courteous smile. "I learned to adjust, yes." Isabella's eyes glinted. "I suppose even a maid can be polished if given enough resources." Elena felt her blood run hot but refused to let it show. Yes, resources do help. And so does genuine character. A flicker of annoyance crossed Isabella's face. She opened her mouth to retort, but Elena smoothly excused herself, not giving Isabella the satisfaction of a full-blown confrontation. Later that evening, a journalist approached Elena for an interview. "Mrs. Kingston, you've surprised us all. Care to share your background?" Elena gave a measured smile. "I come from a humble family, and I've worked various jobs. Meeting Adrian changed my life in ways I never anticipated." Was it love at first sight? She paused, carefully choosing her words. I believe love can come in unexpected forms. What matters is the respect and support you offer one another. Her response impressed the journalist, who quickly scribbled notes. Across the room, Adrian watched her with newfound appreciation. He hadn't expected Elena to handle such situations with composure. As the evening wound down, he intercepted Elena by the exit, placing a hand lightly on her arm. You did really well tonight, he said, voice low, his gaze resting on her intently. I saw you handle Isabella. Elena shrugged, feigning casualness. I can't let her get to me. It would be giving her exactly what she wants. His lips curved into a soft smile. You're becoming quite adept at navigating these waters. She smiled back, warmth spreading through her chest. An unfamiliar flutter teased her heart. In that moment, she thought she saw something in Adrian's eyes, a quiet spark of admiration, maybe even attraction. They lingered a little too long before stepping away, each acutely aware that something between them had shifted. Weeks passed, and Elena's role as Adrian's wife became more natural in the public eye. They attended events side by side, occasionally appearing in magazines as the billionaire and his Cinderella. The tabloids loved to speculate about the authenticity of their marriage, but the gossip failed to dent Adrian's reputation in the way Isabella had likely hoped. Within the mansion, the dynamic between Adrian and Elena evolved in subtle ways. They chatted over breakfast about headlines and philanthropic ideas. They occasionally watched late-night news together. Sometimes, after particularly exhausting social obligations, they found a quiet corner of the mansion to decompress side by side. One night, after a business banquet, Elena was returning to her room when she noticed the light under Adrian's study door. She hesitated, then knocked softly. Come in, he called. She found him hunched over his desk, tie loosened, hair slightly mussed. A half-empty tumbler of whiskey rested on the polished wood. You look tired, she said gently. Long day. He sighed, rubbing his eyes. Long week. I've been trying to close a major deal. Negotiations aren't going as planned. Elena approached cautiously. Maybe a break would help. Sometimes a little distance brings clarity. He smiled ruefully, gaze drifting to the whiskey glass. I suppose you're right. He straightened, and for a moment, he simply studied her face. Thank you for being supportive. She felt her cheeks warm. You've done a lot for me. It's the least I can do. His expression shifted, softening. Not everyone in my life cares to see me as a person. You actually listen. She lowered her gaze, a flutter in her stomach. They were standing closer now, the tension in the room humming like electricity. Her mind spun with questions. Was she reading too much into his words? Could he actually have feelings for her that went beyond their agreement? Adrian seemed to notice the proximity at the same moment she did. He cleared his throat, stepping back slightly. I should probably get some rest, he said, voice suddenly husky. Elena nodded, pulse pounding. Yes, good night. She left the study, skin tingling from the unspoken possibilities that seemed to hover in the air. Alone in her bedroom, she replayed the moment, trying to dismiss the growing attraction she felt for him. This was a contract marriage, nothing more. Letting her heart get involved would only lead to heartbreak. But reason and caution did little to quell the thoughts swirling in her mind. Adrian Kingston was not the shallow billionaire she had once imagined. He was complex, guarded, and in many ways lonely. And it was getting harder each day to pretend she didn't care. A massive charity gala arrived, one that the city's elite had been awaiting for months. Adrian was one of the key patrons, having donated a significant sum. The event took place in the grand ballroom of Kingston Tower's newest luxury hotel. Elena wore a stunning emerald gown that draped elegantly around her figure. When she stepped into the ballroom on Adrian's arm, heads turned. The buzz was immediate. She's radiant. She's not the same timid girl we saw before. During the evening, a waltz began, and couples gravitated to the dance floor. Elena stood at the edge, watching with wistful eyes. She had never learned to waltz properly, only receiving a crash course from Ms. Hastings in the fundamentals of formal dancing. Adrian appeared beside her. "Shall we dance?" Her breath caught in her throat. "I'm not sure I'll be good at it." He extended his hand, a small, reassuring smile on his face. "I'll lead." She took his hand, and he guided her onto the dance floor. The music swelled, and Adrian placed one hand on her waist, the other holding her hand aloft. Tentatively, Elena followed his lead, her heart hammering in her chest. They moved in sync, turning gracefully among the other couples. At first, Elena was hyper-aware of every step, petrified of tripping or stepping on Adrian's polished shoes. But gradually, she found a comfortable rhythm. Their gazes locked, and for a moment, it felt as if they were the only two people in the ballroom. Elena's breath grew shallow from the closeness of his body. She saw the intensity in his eyes, a flicker of something more than mere partnership. They spun and turned, and time seemed to slow. Her body tingled with the realization that she was genuinely enjoying being in his arms. When the music ended, applause rippled through the ballroom. Adrian guided Elena off the dance floor, his hand lingering protectively at her waist. Onlookers whispered in awe, "They have such chemistry," that was mesmerizing. Isabella watched from across the room, seething. She had hoped Elena would falter, make a fool of herself. Instead, Elena had dazzled. Isabella's anger simmered, fueling new schemes in the back of her mind. For Adrian and Elena, however, the moment felt like a turning point. The dance wasn't just an act for the public eye. It was a moment of unspoken connection that left both of them feeling breathless and uncertain. And as they parted ways to mingle with other guests, each silently wondered if they had crossed an invisible line that separated a business arrangement from something dangerously real. 2 days after the gala, Adrian stopped by his favorite penthouse suite to host a small business reception. Elena accompanied him, greeting guests politely. All was going smoothly until Isabella Devereux made an unexpected appearance, breezing into the suite as if she still owned the place. Adrian stiffened the moment he saw her. Elena felt his entire demeanor change, from confident host to guarded ex-lover. Isabella approached with a radiant smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Adrian, darling, I've been looking for you. We need to talk." Elena lingered a few steps away, uncertain whether to intervene. Adrian squared his shoulders and gave Isabella a cool once-over. "We have nothing to discuss." Isabella pouted theatrically. "Oh, come on. We were once about to be married. Don't tell me I don't deserve 5 minutes of your time." Adrian's jaw tightened. "We were set to be married, yes, until you betrayed me. I have no interest in revisiting that conversation." People started to notice the tension. Isabella leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "I made a mistake, Adrian. Charles was just a fling. I never intended to hurt you. You and I had something real. Don't let a silly lapse in judgment ruin us forever." Elena's stomach twisted at Isabella's audacity. She watched Adrian's expression carefully. Would he be swayed by Isabella's pleas? But Adrian shook his head firmly. "A silly lapse in judgment," he echoed, voice dripping with sarcasm. "You humiliated me in front of the entire world. You shattered my trust. And now you come here begging for another chance." Isabella's eyes flashed with desperation. "I still love you," she said, loud enough for Elena to hear. "Don't throw away what we had." Adrian's gaze flicked over to Elena, who stood quietly, heart pounding. Then he turned back to Isabella. "I don't feel anything for you anymore. I've moved on." A moment of stunned silence passed before Isabella's face contorted with rage. She cast a vicious look toward Elena. "Don't tell me you actually love her? She's beneath you, Adrian. Nothing but a maid playing princess." Elena's cheeks flared, but she held her ground, refusing to be cowed by Isabella's insult. Adrian's response was immediate, icy. "Elena is more of a woman than you ever were. And that's all you need to know." Hurt and outrage warred in Isabella's eyes. Without another word, she spun on her heels and stormed out, high heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. Onlookers exchanged glances, and murmurs filled the suite once she was gone. Elena inhaled shakily, unsure what to say. Adrian shot her a brief look. Was it apology, regret, or something else? Before she could decipher it, he turned and busied himself with other guests, leaving Elena with a roiling mix of emotions. She knew it was just a matter of time before Isabella tried something else. A woman scorned was a dangerous opponent, and Elena felt the threat looming in the air like a storm about to break. Late that night, after guests had departed and the suite was empty, Adrian paced in the living area, tension radiating off him. Elena stood nearby, arms folded protectively across her chest. "Why didn't you tell me Isabella was planning to attend?" she asked quietly. She wasn't accusing him, but her voice trembled with leftover adrenaline from the confrontation. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "I didn't know. She's used to going wherever she pleases." Elena approached him cautiously. "It's obvious she still has feelings for you." He scoffed. "Feelings for my money and status, maybe. She's a master manipulator." Silence stretched between them. Finally, Elena said what had been gnawing at her all evening. "Am I just another tool for you to get back at her? Some days, I can't help but feel that this marriage is more about revenge than anything else." Adrian's face hardened. "Don't be ridiculous. We both agreed to this arrangement. Don't forget, you're benefiting from it too." Elena's eyes flashed. "I'm not denying that, but it doesn't mean I enjoy being used in your personal vendetta. I'm a person, Adrian, not a pawn on a chessboard." His voice rose. "And you think I don't know that? I'm trying my best to give you a place in my world. If you feel like a pawn, maybe it's because you keep thinking of yourself as one." She flinched, anger flaring. "Don't turn this on me. I gave up my privacy, my normal life, everything, to be part of this facade. And now I have to deal with your ex throwing insults at me." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "You wanted the financial security. You wanted the education. Don't act like you're just a victim here." A wave of hurt washed over Elena. Yes, she had agreed to the contract, but it stung to hear him reduce her to motives of money alone. She blinked back tears. "Fine. Maybe I am nothing but a gold digger to you." Adrian's voice lowered, but it trembled with pent-up emotion. "That's not what I said." "No. Then what are we doing, Adrian? Because if this is all just revenge, I want no part of it anymore." He stared at her for a long moment, struggling with words. Then, in a quieter tone, he said, "I don't know." "Exactly," she whispered, tears threatening to fall. She turned to leave, her heart heavy. Before she could reach the door, his voice stopped her. "Elena." She paused, not turning around. He exhaled. "I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air. She didn't trust herself to respond, so she left the suite. Heart pounding, she retreated to the solitude of her own room, wondering if this marriage was doomed to unravel before it ever truly began. 2 days after their argument, a fierce storm rolled over the city, bringing heavy rain and thunder. The sky crackled with lightning as if mirroring the tension between Adrian and Elena. That evening, the power flickered in the mansion. Elena was in the library, trying to distract herself with a book, when the lights went out completely. She heard a distant rumble of thunder, and the flash of lightning illuminated the room in stark white for a split second. "Great," she muttered, feeling her way toward the door. "Just perfect." She navigated the dark halls, intending to find a flashlight or generator. Suddenly, she collided with a solid figure. "Ouch!" she gasped. "Elena." Adrian's voice, concerned. Lightning flashed again, revealing his face. She noticed the shadows under his eyes and realized he hadn't been sleeping well. "You okay?" he asked, placing a steadying hand on her arm. "I'm fine," she managed. "I was looking for—" Another crash of thunder shook the windows, making Elena jump involuntarily. She grabbed onto Adrian's shirt for balance, her heart pounding. His voice softened. "It's just a storm." She tried to laugh it off, but the closeness of his body and the electricity in the air rattled her. As lightning flickered, she glimpsed his eyes searching hers. She felt her pulse hammer, and suddenly, all the bottled-up tension between them ignited. Without warning, Adrian lowered his mouth to hers. The kiss was heated, urgent, and filled with unsaid apologies. Elena initially stiffened, but within seconds, she surrendered to the tidal wave of sensations. Rain pounded against the windows, thunder roared, and they kissed as if the world had shrunk to just the two of them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Adrian's hands cupped her face. She couldn't speak, she just stared at him, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and undeniable longing. Adrian exhaled shakily. "I'm sorry if that was too forward." She swallowed, her lips tingling. I'm just surprised." His voice was thick with emotion. "I don't know what's happening anymore. This arrangement. I feel something for you." Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. "Adrian." Another flash of lightning illuminated his face, revealing the vulnerability there. It wasn't just lust, there was something deeper, a raw fear and hope mingled together. The darkness returned, and he stepped back, as if wrestling with his own actions. "I need to figure this out," he whispered. Then he walked away, leaving Elena standing in the pitch-black hallway, heart pounding wildly, unsure if she'd just taken the first step toward love or devastation. In the days following the storm, Adrian became more protective of Elena. He insisted on accompanying her to public events, no matter how minor. He placed a gentle hand on her back when guiding her through crowds, and his gaze lingered on her longer than before. Elena felt herself softening toward him despite her better judgment. She recalled the stormy night kiss with a shiver of anticipation that she struggled to keep under control. She was determined not to be a fool. This was still a contractual marriage, and Adrian had a lot of unresolved baggage. But her heart refused to ignore the growing spark. One evening, Elena came home from a charity board meeting, where she had represented Adrian's interests, and found a bouquet of fresh daisies on her nightstand. A small note read, "Thank you for everything you do. A." Her heart flipped, warmth spreading through her. She thought back to the argument they'd had, the tension, the accusations of being nothing but a pawn or gold digger. Yet now, Adrian was showing genuine gratitude. Later that night, she ventured to the study. She found him there, reading financial reports. He looked up the moment she entered, and a slow smile graced his lips. "You liked the flowers?" he asked. She took a seat across from him, nodding. "They were beautiful. Daisies are my favorite." "I remember," he said, setting aside the reports. "You mentioned it once, months ago, when we passed a flower cart." She was surprised by his attention to detail. Silence stretched between them, heavy with potential. Slowly, Adrian stood, walked over to her, and leaned against the desk. "I know our marriage started as an arrangement," he began, voice quiet, "but I don't regret it. Every day, you show me that there's more to life than business deals and social status." Elena's eyes stung with emotion. "I've grown too. You've given me opportunities one never dreamed of." He hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "I'm starting to care for you in a way I never intended," he admitted, voice tight with vulnerability. "It scares the hell out of me." Elena's breath caught. She glanced away, trying to steady her own racing heart. "Adrian, I'm scared too. But maybe we can figure it out together." He exhaled, relief flooding his features. Then, in a gentle, almost tentative gesture, he brushed his fingers against her cheek. She closed her eyes, leaning into the warmth of his hand. In that moment, it was as if all the fear, doubt, and pain from their pasts faded, leaving only the fragile promise of something real. Days turned into a blur of cautious optimism. Adrian and Elena shared quiet breakfasts, discussing future philanthropic efforts and ideas for expanding charitable programs to help underprivileged youth. They explored the city together. He took her to hidden restaurants he loved, while she showed him the humble neighborhood where she grew up. One weekend, they attended a formal gala for a children's hospital fundraiser. Afterward, they retreated to a private rooftop overlooking the city lights. Standing at the edge, Elena gazed at the sprawling skyline, a million tiny lights flickering like stars. Adrian slid his arm around her waist, pulling her close. She sighed contentedly. I used to dream of this view. Now I'm seeing it up close. He smiled, pressing a soft kiss to her temple. You're seeing it as my wife. The word wife no longer felt like a mere contractual label. Elena turned in his arms, searching his eyes. Adrian, she whispered, voice trembling. I'm starting to believe this could be real. But I need to know you're not just reacting to Isabella's betrayal. He gently brushed her hair aside. What I feel for you has nothing to do with her anymore. I realize now that love can't be forced or bought. It grows from genuine respect and affection. He paused, drawing a shaky breath. I think I'm falling in love with you, Elena. Tears blurred her vision, and she let out a trembling laugh. I think I'm falling for you too. They sealed the confession with a slow, tender kiss under the moonlit sky. The city lights burned brightly beneath them, witnesses to a love story that had begun as a contract but was evolving into something far more powerful. In that moment, they both felt the ground shift. There was no going back, only forward into an uncertain but hopeful future. But the path to love is never simple. Days after their rooftop confession, Elena overheard a conversation between Adrian and Nathan that pierced her heart. She was headed to Adrian's study to surprise him with lunch. The door was slightly ajar, and she could hear Nathan's voice. But it started as revenge, Adrian. You practically admitted it. You married her to stick it to Isabella. Elena froze, heart thudding. She heard Adrian's reply, low and troubled. Yes, it started that way. But it changed. It changed for you, maybe, Nathan pressed. But Elena doesn't know the full extent of how angry and vindictive you were at the beginning. You were obsessed with humiliating Isabella. Elena's hand trembled on the doorknob. She realized that Adrian hadn't told her everything. Sure, she knew about the revenge, but to hear Nathan's words, obsessed, vindictive, suggested a darkness she hadn't fully grasped. Doubts flared. Was Adrian's love for her genuine, or was this relationship still tethered to anger toward Isabella? Hurt and confusion swirled inside her. She quietly backed away from the study and hurried to her room. There, she packed a small suitcase, tears streaming down her face. She felt betrayed by the man she had just begun to trust with her heart. Before leaving, she wrote a brief note. I need time to think. Please don't follow me. She slipped out of the mansion unnoticed, hailing a taxi at the gates. As she watched the opulent estate shrink in the rearview mirror, she couldn't help feeling her heart break all over again. She wasn't sure if she was more upset about the initial revenge plan or the realization that Adrian might never truly escape Isabella's shadow. The only thing she knew for certain was that she needed space to figure out if love born from vengeance could ever be real. Adrian panicked the moment he discovered Elena was gone. He found her note on the hall table and felt as though the ground had been ripped from under him. He called her phone repeatedly, only to reach voicemail. Nathan stood by, guilt etched on his face. This is my fault, Nathan admitted. I pushed you about Isabella, and Elena overheard. Adrian raked a hand through his hair. No, it's my fault for not telling her the entire truth. Nathan grimaced. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes, Adrian said, his voice resolute, to bring her back. He instructed his security team to search for Elena, but she had vanished into the anonymity of the city. For days, Adrian searched fruitlessly, even going to her old apartment and questioning her former neighbors. No one seemed to know where she was. Finally, he remembered a quiet, modest hostel she had once mentioned near the university district. It was a small place, off most people's radar. He arrived there late in the evening, his heart pounding with hope. Sure enough, when the hostel manager recognized Adrian's description of Elena, she directed him to a small room on the second floor. Adrian knocked, anxiety gnawing at him. After a tense moment, the door cracked open. Elena stood there, hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. She looked exhausted and fragile, her usual composure shattered. The sight nearly destroyed him. Go away, Adrian, she said, voice trembling. I asked you not to follow me. He swallowed hard. I can't. I need to talk to you. She tried to close the door, but he slipped his foot in the gap. Please, he whispered, voice thick with emotion. Just hear me out. After a moment's hesitation, she stepped aside, allowing him into the tiny room. A single bed, a small dresser, and a flickering lamp were the only furnishings. Adrian looked painfully out of place in his tailored suit, yet he was never more desperate. Elena, he began, I'm sorry. I should have told you how vengeful I felt at the start. But I swear, my feelings for you changed. I never meant to hurt you. Tears welled in her eyes. You kept insisting it wasn't just about revenge, but how can I believe you now? You were so obsessed with showing Isabella up. He approached slowly, as if she might shatter. I won't lie. At first, I was fueled by anger, angry at Isabella for cheating, at the media for humiliating me. But then you came into my life, and you were so real, so genuine. It made me see everything differently. I realized I wanted you, not because of any grudge or social statement, but because of who you are. She looked away, tears escaping down her cheeks. You should have told me. I know, he said softly. I was scared you'd leave if you knew just how dark my thoughts were in the beginning. She sniffled. How do I trust that you're not still using me to prove something to Isabella? He took a step closer, gently cupping her chin so she had to meet his gaze. Because I renounce Isabella. Publicly, privately, in every way. There is no part of me that wants her. All I want is you. She studied his eyes, searching for any trace of deceit. What she found instead was raw sincerity, mixed with regret and longing. Slowly, painfully, her anger and doubt began to recede, replaced by the memory of the man who had shown her genuine care and tenderness. Adrian, she murmured, voice cracking, I need time. I'm not sure I can jump back into this overnight. He nodded, fighting the urge to pull her into his arms. Take all the time you need. But please, come home. Let me show you I mean what I say. She hesitated, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Ultimately, she nodded. She might not be ready to forgive entirely, but she was willing to see if Adrian's confession was true. And so, in that small, dimly lit room, they began the fragile process of rebuilding trust. The storm of Isabella's meddling hadn't subsided. Realizing Adrian was slipping through her fingers, she launched a new offensive. A series of salacious headlines appeared in tabloids overnight. Elena Ramirez, gold digger of the century? Maid-turned-wife scandal rocks Kingston empire. Articles dredged up Elena's past, her financial struggles, her family debts, her lower-class upbringing. They twisted every fact, painting her as a cunning opportunist who seduced Adrian for his fortune. Elena discovered the gossip when she arrived at the mansion after tentatively agreeing to move back in. She found Adrian in the living room, smashing a newspaper to the coffee table. She's crossed a line, Adrian fumed. Spreading lies about you. Elena's hands trembled as she flipped through the article, filled with quotes from anonymous sources, claiming she was a manipulator. This is awful, she whispered, eyes stinging with tears of humiliation. How could they say these things? Adrian pulled her close, his face set in grim determination. We'll sue for defamation. I won't let Isabella ruin your reputation. But Elena's heart clenched with anxiety. It wasn't just about legal action, it was about public perception. Isabella had powerful connections, and these stories could destroy Elena's credibility, making her a pariah in high society. Let's fight back, Adrian insisted, pulling out his phone. I'll call a press conference, release a statement, whatever it takes. Elena clung to him, both touched by his protectiveness and terrified by the onslaught of media scrutiny. A part of her wondered if this was how Isabella was punishing Adrian for choosing another woman. Yet, seeing Adrian's unwavering support made her believe that maybe, just maybe, they could stand together against the storm. Over the next week, evidence began to surface that Isabella had bribed reporters for salacious stories. Elena's old co-workers came forward to defend her, describing her as hard-working and kind. Even the agency that managed Elena's housekeeping shifts testified that she had never been anything but professional. Meanwhile, Nathan and other close friends rallied around the couple. Nathan uncovered proof that Isabella's family company was funneling money to the tabloids. Armed with this evidence, Adrian prepared to confront Isabella publicly. One afternoon, Adrian found Elena in the mansion's garden. She was sitting on a bench, staring at the blooming roses without really seeing them. Gently, he approached and laid a hand on her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "I'm overwhelmed. I never asked for this kind of scrutiny." He knelt beside her, his voice resolute. "I know. But we'll get through it. Isabella can't keep lying forever." A tear escaped down Elena's cheek. "I just want peace. To live without being labeled a gold digger." "You're not," Adrian said fiercely, lifting her chin to meet his gaze. "You're brilliant, caring, and strong. And I'm going to make sure the world knows it." She searched his eyes and saw unwavering conviction there. It gave her a glimmer of hope. "Thank you," she whispered, placing her hand over his. "For standing by me." His grip tightened. "Always." To prove his love and defend Elena's honor, Adrian organized a press conference at Kingston Tower. Hundreds of reporters packed the auditorium, their cameras aimed at the stage. Elena stood at the sidelines, heart thudding with nerves. Adrian took the podium, scanning the crowd. He cleared his throat, voice echoing through the microphones. "Thank you for coming. I have a statement regarding the slanderous rumors about my wife, Elena Kingston." A ripple of anticipation swept through the room. Adrian continued, "Those rumors, calling her a gold digger or implying she married me for personal gain, are false. Elena Ramirez came into my life at a time when I had lost faith in genuine connections. She reminded me that wealth and social status mean nothing without integrity and a compassionate heart." Elena's eyes brimmed with tears as he spoke. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. Adrian went on, his tone firm but sincere. "My ex-fiancée, Isabella Devereaux, orchestrated a campaign to smear my wife's name. We have evidence of bribes and falsified stories. I'm here to publicly denounce Isabella's actions and express my unwavering support for Elena. She is not a gold digger. She is my partner, my confidant, and the woman I love." A murmur spread through the audience. Flashbulbs went off in rapid succession. Adrian motioned for Elena to join him on stage. Hands trembling, she stepped forward. When she reached him, he took her hand and addressed the crowd once more. "I stand by Elena, not because of some arrangement or any hidden motive, but because she has proven time and again that her heart is true." He turned to her, voice growing gentler. "Elena, I'm sorry for everything you've endured because of me. I love you." The declaration sent a ripple of excitement through the room. Elena, stunned, managed to whisper into the microphone, "I love you too." The press erupted with questions and camera flashes, but Adrian and Elena only had eyes for each other. In that moment, they felt an unbreakable bond, forged not in revenge but in the fire of shared trials and genuine devotion. Elena wanted to believe the nightmare was over, but old insecurities still gnawed at her. The press conference had been a powerful statement, yet the scars remained. She worried that part of Adrian's grand gesture was still about defying Isabella, not truly about being with Elena for the right reasons. In the quiet aftermath, she found herself questioning whether she could ever truly belong in Adrian's world. Despite the public support, the gossip was unrelenting. People whispered that she had manipulated him into defending her. Others claimed she was secretly pregnant, which she wasn't. One evening, Elena sat with Adrian on the terrace, the city lights flickering below. "I can't shake the feeling that I'll always be an outsider here," she murmured. Adrian frowned. "You're not an outsider. You're my wife." She pressed her lips together. "But will high society ever accept me? And if they don't, will that pull you away from me one day?" He reached for her hand. "Elena, I don't live my life based on their approval." She shook her head, tears threatening. I need to find my own path, my own self-worth. Away from the media circus, away from the constant scrutiny." Panic flashed in his eyes. "Are you leaving me?" She paused, taking a ragged breath. "I think I need some space to figure out who I am in this marriage. I can't keep doubting your intentions or my place here. I need to stand on my own 2 feet for a while." Adrian's grip tightened. "So you're saying goodbye?" Her voice wavered. "Not forever, I hope. But for now, I think it's what I need." He closed his eyes, a wave of sadness crossing his face. After a moment, he whispered, "I won't stop you. But please remember, you are the only one I choose." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. Early the next morning, she packed a suitcase. Adrian helped her carry it to the car, both of them silent, hearts heavy. With one last look, Elena got into the waiting vehicle and drove away, unsure if she was making the biggest mistake of her life or the most necessary decision for her own growth. Elena moved to a small apartment closer to the university where she had enrolled for her long-awaited degree program. She attended classes, quietly focusing on her studies and volunteering at local community centers. She kept track of Adrian's life through occasional news articles or friendly updates from Nathan. Adrian's empire continued to thrive. Rumors circulated that he was expanding into new territories, and at the same time, he seemed more philanthropic than ever, donating large sums to charities Elena cared about. One afternoon, she received a phone call from a real estate agent. "Mrs. Kingston? I'm calling regarding the property Adrian Kingston purchased in your hometown. He wanted me to deliver the documents to you personally." Elena's eyes widened in confusion. "My hometown? He bought... what exactly?" The agent hesitated. "He bought your childhood home, the one you lost when your family fell on hard times. He's renovated it completely. It's now in your name." Tears sprang to her eyes. She recalled the day her family had to leave that home, how her grandmother had cried, how it had felt like losing a piece of her identity. Now, Adrian had returned it to her. She hung up, emotions swirling, surprise, gratitude, love. Was this his way of telling her that he cared about her history, about her roots? That he wanted to secure her future no matter what? Later that day, she sat in her new apartment, staring at the deed. Overwhelmed by Adrian's gesture, she realized how deeply he must care for her. Despite their separation, he was still trying to ensure her happiness and stability. After a long, sleepless night, she picked up her phone and dialed his number. He answered on the first ring, his voice laced with hope. "Elena." She inhaled sharply. "I got the deed. Adrian, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come home," he pleaded softly. "I'm not asking you to give up your dreams or your sense of self. I just want you by my side." Her heart ached. She knew now that his love was genuine. The only question was whether she was ready to accept it fully, without fear. "I need to see you," she whispered. They met in a quiet corner of the city's public park, a place Elena loved for its greenery and peaceful atmosphere. She spotted Adrian on a bench, dressed casually, looking more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. She approached slowly, and he stood to greet her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he broke the silence. "How are you?" he asked, voice low and filled with longing. She managed a small smile. "Better. I'm learning a lot at the university." He nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "I'm glad." They walked through the park, weaving between tall trees whose leaves rustled in the gentle breeze. Finally, they found a secluded spot near a small pond, where ducks swam lazily. Elena took a seat on a bench, Adrian beside her. "What you did, buying my childhood home, it means more to me than you can imagine," she began, tears in her eyes. "Thank you." He reached for her hand. "I wanted you to have a piece of your past, something stable. That home was important to you." She blinked back tears. "No one has ever done anything like that for me." He squeezed her hand, voice trembling. "I never want you to question whether I value you or not. You're free to live where you want, study what you want, be who you want. All I ask is that you let me love you while you do it." She looked at him, heart full. I'm sorry for running away. I just needed to be sure I could stand on my own 2 feet. He swallowed hard. Do you still need more time? She exhaled, shaking her head. No. I think I'm ready to come back, on my terms, our terms. A smile spread across his face, lighting up his features. He pulled her into a tight embrace, breathing her in as if he feared she'd disappear again. They stayed like that for a long moment, letting the park's tranquil beauty surround them. In that quiet space, they found peace in each other's arms, at last. The second wedding ceremony took place in the same garden where they had first said, "I do," but this time it was out of genuine love. The guest list was smaller: friends, close colleagues, and loved ones who truly supported Adrian and Elena. There were no paparazzi invited, no tabloids lurking. Elena walked down the aisle in a white gown that symbolized a fresh start. The sun shone brightly, and the air was filled with the scent of roses and lavender. Adrian stood at the altar, eyes brimming with tears of joy. Nathan, smiling from ear to ear, served as the best man. When Elena finally reached Adrian, they clasped hands, gazing into each other's eyes. The officiant spoke, but this time the vows came from a place of true devotion. I, Adrian, take you, Elena, to be my wife. No contracts, no conditions, just us, Adrian said, voice thick with emotion. You brought hope and warmth back into my life when I thought all was lost. I promise to love you with everything I am, forever. Elena's tears fell freely. I, Elena, take you, Adrian, to be my husband. Not for money, not for social standing, but because you showed me what it means to be cherished. I promise to stand by you, through every storm and every triumph. They exchanged rings, simple but profound symbols of their love. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife once more. This time, the kiss was filled with unreserved passion, sealing a union not born of vengeance or obligation, but of genuine heart. As they turned to face their guests, the applause and cheers were deafening. There were smiles instead of whispered judgments, tears of happiness instead of cynicism. Isabella was nowhere to be found. Her reign over Adrian's life finally ended. Hand in hand, Adrian and Elena walked down the aisle as confetti floated through the air. In the crowd, some of the same people who once mocked Elena now looked at her with envy. She had proven them all wrong. The Maid had become the queen of Adrian Kingston's world, not by manipulation or luck, but by the undeniable force of love. They spent the reception laughing, dancing, and sharing their story with those closest to them. Later, as the sun began to set, Adrian took Elena aside. They stood at the edge of the garden, overlooking a serene pond. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers. I love you. Elena smiled, heart full to bursting. I love you too. She knew that challenges would continue to arise. Their backgrounds were vastly different. The media might still try to spin tales. And yet, as she rested her head on Adrian's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, she felt certain they could weather it all together. Thus ended a tale that began in betrayal and heartbreak but found redemption in genuine affection and personal growth. Elena Ramirez, once just a hotel maid with big dreams, now stood beside Adrian Kingston as not only his wife but the confidant, the partner, and the very center of his universe. And in that shared love, they found a happiness that no scandal or social barrier could ever destroy. I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story.